My name is Vipperman, and we're excited to be back this morning. Today, we're going to talk about another awesome entrepreneur that Eagle Venture Fund is backing, Joel Balyeat, and his company, Implicit Good. Joel, glad to have you with us this morning.
Glad to be here, Vip.
Hey, looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the story and honestly, the backstory of how we got here. Um, We'll start with a couple questions. I'd love to hear, can you just catch us up? Tell us a little bit of your story, starting from, maybe even childhood, if you're willing to go back that far, and catch us up to when you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have today, so I'll try to keep it succinct. I have an interesting story, interesting journey. God has blessed me with a lot of amazing opportunities to learn things, do things, and accomplish. And so it started with being a child on the road. My family lived on the road. We were kind of like Christian gypsies and traveled full time until I was about 9. I was homeschooled my entire childhood. Graduated when I was 15. Started working in construction at that time and had my first tech job at 19 and then joined the Army at right about when I was turning 21. So I was in Montana at the time. Montana's kind of home for me, although I've moved around a lot. And started a journey in the military, originally intending to be a ranger. That quickly turned into a special forces option. So I went infantry, then Green Beret. I was in special forces for the majority of my career, focusing on intelligence and technical surveillance and things like that. Obviously, can't talk about everything I did in the military, but I got the opportunity to do some things at a very high level that I believe had a positive impact on the world. I hope so. And I did deploy in combat operations in Iraq, and learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about bad people, and I learned a lot about how to be effective in unconventional ways, stopping people from doing bad things. So, continuing forward, I exited the Army in 2012. I got back into the tech sector, finding ways to solve special operations and intelligence community problems with commercial off-the-shelf available technology and emerging technology solutions, leveraging my experience in combat and my tech background to figure out um, effective ways to solve problems quickly. And because it's a complicated space. So I worked several different tech jobs and then got the opportunity to start working in a human trafficking operation. And that was the first time that I worked full-time fighting human trafficking. This is going back now about 12 years ago. I also helped start a human trafficking nonprofit and had the opportunity to train people in the field and consult on how to solve the problem of human trafficking from an intel perspective. And life changed around a little bit. I did other interesting things. I became a professional welder for a while, and then I became a police officer, and that was in Oklahoma. I was a police officer for about 4 years, and I
Okay.
realized that a lot of the experience from the intel community and from special operations can be applied in law enforcement and in ways that are not necessarily typical in law enforcement investigation, but can be legal and can be effective. And I had the opportunity to start the second successful racketeering case in Oklahoma state history while I was a police officer on regular patrol.
Oh, wow.
So
And for the audience, help us and understand what is the racketeering. I know there's kind of famous people that have been arrested for it when they were trying to do bring criminal charges. Catch us up on that.
yeah, so a bit of a side quest. I'll try to keep it succinct, but racketeering laws are originally put together to take down the mob. You have people that are running an extensive business that are experienced criminals, and it's they're think of it. I think I explain it like a movie. So anyone who helps make a movie, whether they're holding the lights or the main actor or the director or they wrote the movie, they're all guilty of making the movie. If they're on the credits, they made the movie. Racketeering laws are people that work together to commit crimes over and over again as part of an identifiable organization. They're all making the movie, and if you catch one of them, you catching all of them. You can charge them all with making the movie, as it were. And so you have to have an identifiable organization. You have to have two or more crimes, two or more times committed by people in that organization. They have to be predicate crimes, in other words, off a list that actually apply. It can't just be shoplifting. But one of those predicate crimes is human trafficking. And one of those predicate crimes is money laundering. And there's a lot of others that we find in the anti-trafficking space that are racketeering predicate crimes. And so if you think about it like making a movie and finding out who's making the movie, tying the pieces together, then you can charge all of them at once for making the movie. And those are very significant crimes and felonies that are a lot more effective for taking down organized criminal operations, because that's what they're designed for.
Awesome. Love it. And that's something you've been doing for the last few years.
Yes. So I was a police officer for 4 years, left that in 2020 and went and got a couple master's degrees, wrote a few books, and figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And got back into the tech sector again, this time into video games and interactive entertainment. Worked at several video game companies. Worked at Microsoft and Activision as a data analytics project manager, and then culminated that chapter of my life as chief product officer at the last company I worked with, working on a mobile game, and then got the opportunity to jump back into the anti-trafficking fight full time and started that earlier this year, and came at it at the angle of, okay, the racketeering organized crime laws that are there and are available to be used but are rarely used because they're uncommon in cases. If we can help law enforcement discover and apply those laws and the people breaking them to anti-trafficking cases, we can make big cases, we can help law enforcement, we can turbocharge justice, and that's my current approach.
Love it, dude. That's awesome. So first off, again, thanks for serving our country. I really appreciate all you did in that season. Excited to learn a little bit more about how you guys are tech enabling the fight against racketeering. A lot of times in the human trafficking work that people are involved in, they're trying to get new legislation passed or get laws worked on that can be in the fight to make their work more effective. And you're talking about stuff laws that are already there that they can already leverage to put traffickers away for a longer time. And so it's exciting to hear that, this is existing, it's existing knowledge, existing information, existing opportunity. You're just helping law enforcement learn how to leverage it so that they can make a more significant impact in the fight against human trafficking. And I think you mentioned this in conversations we've had before, but not here on the podcast. In a normal, like a basic human trafficking related case, what's the typical time a trafficker is going to serve versus like a RICO type opportunity? Just so the audience understands the significant impact of the difference.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't have statistics in front of me, but I do have anecdotes and generalities that speak to the problem. So with a typical felony conviction of any type in the U.S., if it's the first time that someone's being convicted of a felony, unless it's something really major like they shot someone, drugs, money laundering, any of those types of things, if it's your first felony, a lot of times you're going to get a light sentence of maybe a year. And we just saw one in Lubbock, Texas. They actually got convicted of some of these charges, and they still only got like 13 months. Or you'll even get a suspended or deferred sentence, which means you don't even go to prison. You're just, hey, we got you. Don't do anything wrong again, or we'll stack both charges on you and go to prison for all of them. Because our prison system and our legal system at large is completely overloaded. So to your question,
a challenging reality.
It is a challenging reality. It doesn't mean that people who destroy other people's lives for fun and profit, aka human traffickers, can't go to prison for a long time, but it does mean that you have some barriers to overcome. So with any sort of first-time felony case, you're normally probably only looking at 1 to maybe 3 years. And there is a significant chance, if they plea out, that they won't go to prison at all. They'll get a suspended sentence. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a prosecutor. It varies greatly depending on the person, the situation, the jurisdiction. But the bottom line is it's normally not going to be very long. But I'll give you an example of a racketeering case that I'm familiar with, where perpetrators who were already known criminals and were getting deferred sentences even after previous felonies, when they got convicted of the RICO, they got 480-year sentences. That's a lot
Whoa.
longer.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it can be very significant very quickly, because the laws are written to where if you get convicted of them, it's a heavy sentence, and they're designed to where you have like committing a crime in concert with another person. That's an additional charge on top of whatever the crime was in the first place. Conspiracy to commit the crime with someone else. The charges are designed to where they can stack up. If you're doing this as a business with other people, they're designed to where it can really punish you and take you down. So sort of a long and rambling answer to a short question,
No.
but it can be a lot more than it would otherwise
Yeah.
be, I think, is the answer.
It's multiples of the amount of time served, which is significant. That's awesome. Well, so in building a company, so you've done military work, you've done tech work, you've done law enforcement work, and now you're building this company, Implicit Good, to kind of combine, the things that you've learned from all these. We love seeing, sometimes we love talking about, a 20-year-old entrepreneur who came out of college, or just decided to build something, and we celebrate those stories. But we say a lot of times successful entrepreneurs have been in business or been in a specific area for a long amount of time. They've seen a problem that they recognize, and then they decide, let's go solve that problem based on the knowledge and experience I have. And obviously you've worked with teams, obviously you know how to manage people, and because of your work in military and in different companies. So now that you've got this experience, I know tech, I know law enforcement, I know how criminals and bad guys act, as it were, and then I know how to manage people to solve big problems. So it's a great time to build a company to go, solve. So tell us specifically, what is Implicit Good designed to do? Like, what is that problem that it solves? And then how you guys do it?
Yeah. So Implicit Good, the goal is basically to turbocharge justice, both on the criminal side and also on civil plaintiff side. And we haven't talked about that as much so far in this conversation, but we do both. Our goal is to do both. So the opportunity space, I consider myself to be a full stack problem solver. I love solving hard problems, and I love finding the largest delta between current state and ideal state and solving that, and then moving on to the next one. So when I was a police officer, I noticed a really large delta in resources in relation to the problem, especially for systemic proactive investigation. Law enforcement, because they're overloaded, are primarily reactive and event-based. A bad thing happens, and then they have to respond to it. That's true for police officers on the street responding to calls. It's true for detectives who constantly get flooded with new cases. It's true for departments at large that have surging problems they're trying to find a way to deal with. On the flip side, going to war and doing the type of intelligence you need to do to win a war, that is systemic and proactive. You have to examine the entire space, the entire ecosystem, the collection of problems and things that can be solved, and then proactively figure out how to dismantle it. That's how you win a war. All of the factors have to be taken into consideration. And so the opportunity space that we found, or I'm aware of and that we're trying to fill, is can we help law enforcement do systemic proactive investigation into known problems or emerging problems and bring extra horsepower to that problem set to turbocharge what they want to do? Because typically they know a lot about what is going on. It's having the resources to effectively investigate it and get the evidence they need to do something about it. That's a resource problem. And it's a resource problem that can be greatly improved with the right technology, which a lot of times they're not able to adopt effectively and quickly because of cost and the economy of scale, and also because of how fast the tech market moves. So technology is moving faster than humans are by a lot, especially with a lot of the new AI tools and stuff we see. And even the largest of departments can't just snatch up the new things and use them immediately. They have to be vetted, they have to be approved, they have to get budget approved for it. Whereas a company can do whatever is smart for them to solve the problem that generates the value that makes the company exist. And that's why I'm taking the for-profit approach, is so we can move quickly to solve the problems and solve the delta in resources and capability.
No, I love it. That's exactly what I want to hear. And I mean, in that regard, what is it that you are, you're talking about solving problems. You're talking about, can you give us like a use case type scenario of what, we see the TV shows, a crime happens, people take pictures, that gets uploaded into data, it gets compared with other things, they do fingerprints, all this different stuff. It gets uploaded in the computer, they build cases and that kind of stuff. That's what the movies show, or the TV shows that people like to watch. But when we're talking real crime, and as you're talking about preventing real crime, talk to us about a little bit of the specifics of like what your technology is designed to do.
Yeah, so to be clear, it's not my technology. We're not a technology company. I leverage great tech solutions that other companies, including many that are funded through Eagle Venture Fund, bring to the table. So I am a user of technology and not a creator of technology, user and evaluator. So it's interesting. So you mentioned this is how it happens on TV. Well, I know this might be a surprise, but that's not how it happens in the real world. So there's existing data out there, and we have data sets that are public purchasable data, massive amounts of data that's created, and then we have information and data that exists that is not yet collected, that can be. But the big issue is processing that data and that information, or collecting it if it has not been collected yet, and then developing it into an actionable product. So I'll give you an example with facial recognition. A lot of people are familiar with facial recognition technology. To make facial recognition technology useful, you have to have an input and an evaluation system and an output, and then someone that makes use of it. And so we work with partners to find the input, which could be, for instance, a publicly available database of mugshots of everyone who is a sex offender in an area. And we work with a tech partner to compare that to images that we may be acquiring in the field, or from social media posts or other publicly available places, and then discover what is relevant, and then package that into an information package for law enforcement. And this is an insular example about that specific piece of technology that then tells them, hey, these people that are in this area are these, or are very likely to be these specific sex offenders, and they are engaged in this activity that gives you a articulable, reasonable suspicion to investigate them for the crime that we think that they're doing. So it is a conglomeration of collecting what's available out there. This gets to be a complicated answer, but collecting what's available out there, public available, purchasable information, things that we collect, and then comparing, evaluating, drawing statistical analysis, and finding out what's true and what matters. Did that answer your question, or did I go down a rabbit hole there?
No. I think that's really helpful. I mean, again, it's trying to identify, who the folks that are potential risks are, and if they were involved in something. I'm kind of guessing, so tell me if I'm wrong. You're going to look at that database, and you're going to look at recent pictures, maybe near a school or a park or something like that, and you're like, man, are people in this sex offender list on Facebook or in backgrounds of photos and that kind of thing, taking kids to go do things, or standing in the background of the park or something like that?
That's an example. I'll give you another example. So criminal enterprises a lot of times hide exactly what's going on with business registration, taxes, and things like that, which is smart for them to do, because otherwise they're going to get caught a lot easier. So, but a lot of this information is available. Business registration, associated phone numbers. This is available information, but it's tangled like a knot. And so we gather that information and then do statistical analysis on what the likely connections are, and then we go out and verify it. So I'll give you an example. If you have a business that has 5 people associated with it, and 5 businesses associated with each of those people, and then there's illicit activity, there's illegal activity happening in one of those businesses, but the money is being distributed through all of those 25 businesses. That's money laundering. But first you have to figure out the connection that they're all together and map that and put that in a nice little package to say, hey, we know all of this cash is being generated here, but where does it go? Like law enforcement, they're like, okay, we know those are bad guys, but what are they doing with the money and how do we prove it? How do we get to the proof? Well, the first part is finding out those 25 companies associated with that activity. So it's another example of rabbit trail that we'll be following.
Nice. It's definitely sounds like you guys are digging into deep data stuff. And again, it's based on trying to be proactive about solving the problem and not just, like you said, reactive once the crime has already happened. And these are groups that are, working on doing multiple crimes over a series of time. It's not just a one-time, thing.
Right. So human trafficking, we do find about 20% of the industry, if you will, is what we call transactional. That's not good. That means that the people in it are dead by the time they're done getting trafficked. That's a situation where you have to find them quickly, or you can't help them anymore. But in the other 80%, this is operating as a business. It's just like any other business. It has inputs, outputs, costs, cycle time, resources, and because of that, it's a system that is always happening, that is always changing, that you can find, map, and track. So we triangulate people, patterns, and places. If I can know 2 of those points, I can always find the third. And if, for instance, someone that is a person in that triangle gets arrested and taken out of the picture, the triangle will reform, and then you can find the next person doing it. And so
nice. You said people, patterns, and
places. So crime, this type of crime has to exist in a physical location on the planet, and they can move the place, but we can find the new one if we know the peoples and patterns. And so I call it trigonometry, but we triangulate those things, and then once you have it triangulated in an area, even as it morphs, it is much easier to discover again and again and again. And that's why I say systemic and proactive, because one point of the triangle or even an entire triangle may be known, but one of the complaints that I get from law enforcement a lot, or one of the things they tell me, is they're like, yeah, we can take down an illicit massage parlor, but they'll pop up another one next week. We know. But if we know who the they is and who the beneficial financial ownership is that is bankrolling that, we'll just find them again, and we'll find them much faster.
Nice, because it's an organization and they're thinking strategically. They're not just one-off. Not necessarily just one-off doing it. No, that's awesome. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about the impact you're having. When I hear things like this, I get excited. I'm like, wow, technology, law enforcement, taking down bad guys. But like, how often is this actually happening? Are you guys, working on ops, once a year, building up for like a large case or something like that? Or is this like a daily, interactive situation?
Great question. So the opposition is not doing this once a year. They're doing it every day all over the world. And so we need to be too. We're doing this every day. I have about 15 cases that I'm managing right now. I won't be talking on this call about specific cases, but we're constantly working cases, and we are right now at about a 3-week cycle time from we get a lead to we pass off a package of information. We're working to get that down to a 2-week cycle time so that we can do 2 cases every month with one team, and then also be scaling and getting more and more teams on the ground and more analysts supporting them. So we are at the point where we are doing continual operations affecting the problem, and now we want to scale and do it in more places at once.
Yeah, so instead of, the law enforcement local group may be working on this one big project, but you're helping, 20 to 30 projects, a year at this point. 2 a month. That type of thing would be kind of the goal, like 25 to 30 a year on the project. And then if you train more locations, then you can have, cities all over the country that are effectively trained at how to make this work.
Yeah, so a couple things there. One, law enforcement's they're not just working one case. We may be working one case with them, but they probably have 30 or more similar. is an example that is true with the department that we work with. So it's a matter of which one do they want help with or that we can help with. The opportunity is staggering. The opportunity to offer assistance is staggering, and we are constantly beset with new cases and leads, and would like to take on more than we're already taking on, because they normally have many that they don't have the resources to handle. I lost my train of thought on what the other thing was.
No. That's helpful. I was gonna say, talk to me. Let's see the impact you're having. Well, I guess one of the things I want to make sure to ask, how many of these how many of these packages that you guys are putting together are leading to actual arrests and convictions? Do you guys, I mean, have y'all been in business long enough to have kind of a number yet? Or is that something that you're kind of build up over this next year and kind of over the next 3 to 5 years, you'll be able to see the specific impact?
Yeah, it'll definitely be. So we've already have some cases that have led to arrests and recoveries. Even though we are very early on, we're doing this every day. So, but cases have different sizes. Some cases end up being a single victim, such as a missing child who's been taken across a state border and getting trafficked in another state. If we can find her, and then the people that have her are likely getting arrested, and she's likely getting recovered, or he. And we have had cases like that we've been able to assist with. Larger cases that are more systemic, those could take a year even after we pass off the package. It depends on what it is, because the bigger the case is, the more evidence that law enforcement needs to go find to prove what we found is true and usable in a court of law. So we are not law enforcement. We are not creating probable cause for warrants. That's something that law enforcement needs to do. We're helping them figure out where they're going to find it and what it's going to look like. But that still takes time. So in answer to your question, yes, we have had some impact already, sort of tip to tail impact, but in the long run, it will be quite a bit more as larger cases come across the goal line.
Awesome. I mean, just exciting to see that it's moving, and you guys are growing and editing and getting better as it develops, because you're seeing again what the bad guys are doing, and then you guys are have opportunities to continue to use technology as it evolves to build better work against the cases and that sort of thing. So excited to see the promotion there. What do you think the future of this space looks like? In 3 to 5 years, what is it that you hope that is happening with Implicit Good and just in general?
Great question. Before we dive into that, I want to talk a little bit about civil cases side, which we haven't talked about yet. So
absolutely,
the evidentiary requirement for a civil case is less. It's a preponderance of the evidence. Basically, a judge has to, or a jury has to believe it's more likely than not, based on what they're seeing, that bad things occurred and that person or organization did it to this person, and then they can cost them a whole bunch of money for it. On the criminal side, it's beyond reasonable doubt to get a conviction, which, because of the CSI effect, is almost beyond any doubt. So we can get there, but it takes a lot more. So one of the deltas that I'm talking about in current state versus ideal state is a lot of people do not know how to report their crimes to law enforcement well enough to get action. It's just true. They don't realize they need to give them a lot. It's not like on TV. And so a lot of times law enforcement isn't able to do what they need to on a case. But on the civil side, a lot of times the case can be made much easier. But people don't understand. They can go to a civil plaintiff attorney and say, hey, this person or this organization did this to me, and I'd like you to do something about it. So we help them with that. So on the civil side, especially as it relates to organized, ongoing exploitation, we help them, one, understand something can be done about this. And if it is an organization that has a lot of money or a person that did this to you, we can sue them civilly and go after that on your behalf. And we can do it for free. We can do it for free for a just like any other personal injury attorney. If the case succeeds, you get a bunch of money, we get some money, and we keep on doing the same thing for other people. So we've already gotten traction on that and are building that out. I say that partly because I wanted to talk about it. It's important. It's about half of what we're doing. But where we want to be in 3 to 5 years is we want to have a caseload of hundreds of people who have been trafficked, and whether or not there is a criminal case going to try to bring justice on the criminal side to human traffickers, we want to have several hundred cases going on the civil side to bring justice both for the perpetrator and for the victim. Law enforcement can get a type of justice for the victim, and in some cases they can get like lost wages for people who have been trafficked. But the civil side can sue them for the damage that's occurred and punitive damages, and also stop organizations that are allowing human trafficking to happen from doing it, because it's a really bad financial idea for them to do, while restoring the victim. So we're very, very excited about that, because it is technically easier, but it requires horsepower in terms of understanding the legal process and understanding how to get the right information together to make that case, and then giving it to an attorney who files it. And we do that. So in 3 to 5 years, we want to have several hundred cases in the pipeline, which from a business standpoint equates to a massive backlog of incoming money to help us do more of what we do and grow and scale, which is important for a business, alongside what we're doing for law enforcement, which is a similar but different grind where we're constantly providing value. And then 3 to 5 years down the road, we have many, many departments that are working with us. We have an established relationship where they understand the value that comes in is this, and for that they're on contract for this, or we are sharing seizure funds with them, or whatever the case may be. But it's an established known value.
Awesome, dude. I'm excited. So last question for today. For audience who's listening to a podcast like this, the listener that's out there, what's the message that they can for them to, in some cases, like for some of the companies we've worked with, it's pay more attention to being safe online, because the internet, the technology is about safe internet for kids. For others, it's it was a fostering, and getting involved in fostering children and supporting other families who are fostering children, because the fostering system leads to a lot of human trafficking, unfortunately. But in your case, if you've got someone who's listening, they're like, man, that's an incredible story. Great work. How can they get involved, or what's the recommendation to them?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to give law enforcement a plug here. So one of the things that we hear a lot in the anti-trafficking space is, we told the police and they did nothing. It's hard to do what law enforcement does. They are doing their job, and they can use your help. So just because you don't see a result from what you do does not mean it didn't help. They may be working a case and you don't know it. And it does not mean that if a lot of people do that, in the aggregate, it doesn't give them the information that they need to succeed. So if you're aware of things and you report them to the police, trafficking related, don't assume that goes into a black hole and does nothing. Keep on reporting things that you see. And then also reach out to companies and organizations such as myself and nonprofits. There are a lot of people in this fight, and they can use the information and assistance that everyone can provide. So if you think you know something that is relevant, don't be afraid to reach out. And if you think you have a piece of technology or a solution or a specific person you can help, definitely reach out, because this is nothing that anyone can solve on their own. This is something that society has to solve together.
I think that goes back to the Homeland Security, the HSI. So, but if you see something, say something, right? Their blue campaign, and just trust that it's important work, because they're using those leads and those connections to actually help. Awesome, man. Joel, thanks for taking some time, helping us understand a little bit about racketeering and RICO, telling us a little bit about your story and serving in the military and law enforcement in these technology companies, and just exciting to hear about the work that you guys are doing, and love the opportunity to see it grow. So excited to back another bold company like Implicit Good. Have a great day.
Thanks, Vip.